This is Why Small Business Matters from Northumbria University, supporting small businesses with the Help to Grow management programme.
Hello and welcome back to Why Small Business Matters. My name is Matt Sutherland, and in today's episode we gaze into the stars and understand more about running one of the Northeast's most unique visitor attractions, Kielder Observatory.
Ultimately, it's a chance for any individual to experience hope, revelation, wonder, cosmic terror, kind of whatever it may be.
That was the voice of Leigh Venus. CEO of Kielder Observatory, Leigh has dedicated his career to supporting cultural and heritage organisations across the country, having held senior roles at Groundwork South and North Tyneside and the RNLI. In 2023, Leigh secured the role of Chief Executive to the Astronomical Observatory located in Kielder Forest, Northumberland. Recently, I headed up to Northumberland to meet with Leigh, and we started by asking what makes Kielder Observatory so unique.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me onto this. And I love talking about Kielder Observatory. I'm rapidly approaching my first year here. Actually, tomorrow's my first anniversary. So it's quite a nice moment to do this and to reflect on things, and particularly the observatory itself. So for anybody who doesn't know, it's in one of Europe's largest areas of protected dark skies. So it's beautifully dark. It's a gold tier dark skies park. So it's protected night skies, and it's kind of on a hill in the middle of nowhere in Kielder Forest. So it's called Black Fell. To get there, you go up a track. It's 2 miles. You arrive at the top. It's crisp. It's got its own kind of microclimate up there. And it's this really quite startling looking building. So for anybody who's not been before, I think they'd imagine an observatory be this kind of white domed sort of classic vision of what an observatory is. Yeah. It's nothing like that, actually. It's made of wood. It's got these 2 large square turrets. And the reason it's like that is because it was birthed in the kind of mid-noughties as something of an art piece. And so it was one of many art installations around Kielder Forest. And it opened in 2008. The intention of the architects is that it looks like a kind of a wooden sailing ship sailing out of the hills and across Kielder Water, the reservoir that's out there. And it's a very evocative, unusual space. And it was originally opened with the intention that every month there would be a couple of astronomy events. A few volunteers would get some local astronomers, some local groups up there to do a bit of observing. And we're kind of approaching the 20th anniversary now in 2028, and it's hugely successful beyond what was originally intended for it. So we're not doing a couple of events a month. We do 2 or 3 events a night, pretty much every night of the year. Around 500-600 events across the year. We operate in other locations beyond the site as well. And we work with various partners across the Northeast to deliver astronomy, education and outreach. So in schools, in prisons, with refugees, and all manner of other audiences that maybe can't make it up there on the hill, or maybe are just not even aware that astronomy could potentially be their thing. So, yep, it's hugely successful. 15 to 20,000 visitors a year or thereabouts, depending on when you're counting. And we're one of the region's treasures, I think. And sitting here now, I'm a day out from my first anniversary at Kielder Observatory as coming in as CEO, 4th of December 2023. I feel really privileged to be the custodian of it for whatever period of time I'm here. It's a treasure. I always loved it before I came here, and I like to make it accessible to as many people as possible.
I love the way you describe this 2-mile track that you have to navigate up to, and I can imagine going up, and of course you've got this beautiful wooden structure.
Yeah.
What do people experience? I can imagine what they experience, of course, even just getting there, but what's the experience? What do you tell people they're going to experience when they get there?
Well, very specifically, we the offer we have kind of coalesces around something that we describe as the Kielder moment. And it's a marketing term. It's a fun thing that we peg the idea with in strategy and how we think about these things. But ultimately, it's a chance for any individual to experience hope, revelation, wonder, cosmic terror, kind of whatever it may be. And a moment of real connection with the universe and the natural heritage of the dark skies, which we and I believe is everybody's fundamental birthright. It's the sky above everybody's heads, and people aren't as connected to it as they could be for whatever reason, particularly if you live in urban centres and you're away from the kind of the darkness that we offer. So it really is about giving people a chance to experience a moment of wonder or connection and a real sort of moment of revelation in many ways as to the sort of the preciousness of the world we're on, the vastness of the cosmic landscape in which we sit. And this all sounds very kind of airy and nebulous, but I go up there and I see this happen to people. It happens to me still when I'm up there. I never get tired of it. And it is offering people that chance to engage with that. And we say chance as well because it's Northumberland, it's England, weather conditions are what they are. We can't always offer clear skies, but what we do offer is a kind of a 5-star experience no matter what. So one of the things that we know from all of the reviews and all the feedback we get is that even when it's cloudy, even when people don't see anything, we still get 5-star reviews because of the other stars that you see, if you will, or the team that we have there. And it's a long-standing team. It's a broad team as well. They're everything from amateur astronomers to people doing PhDs in auroras. It's a broad team. They're fantastic with the public, and we just offer a 5-star experience for anybody who does make the trek up that track, which is part of the adventure as well, by the way. Because once you're up there, you kind of already feel like you've accomplished something amazing, and the rest of it's just easy for us by then because you already feel
they're there.
Good.
Yeah, they're there. And it is, I mean, it's a beautiful location, and you're just sitting south of the Scottish border in such a beautiful part of the UK. And getting a sense of place as well, actually. The place is important, isn't it? Because I imagine by going there, you're all coming from different walks of life. You're coming, you're busy, and you're coming to this place, which is a bit of a tonic. Yeah. And then you're looking. Actually, you think you're busy. You think your life's fairly vast, and you're all the ground that you cover during the week. And then you come there and you look up to the sky. Crumbs, you must be actually your day-to-day job must feel really small compared to the sheer awe of what you see above. How important is that sense of place when you're experiencing the Kielder Observatory?
It's extremely important, and there's something interesting in what you said there. There's a really memorable moment. Quite early on in my time here, I would go up and kind of sit at the back of the events, lurk around when a lot of the staff didn't recognise me, and just get a feel for what was going on. And I listen in to what visitors are saying, and there's this moment where this woman went up to one of our team members and asked how they possibly get on with their day-to-day. Like, how can you focus on spreadsheets and emails when you've got all of this? And the staff member just said to them, I don't know, really, because it's incredibly powerful and transformative. And that place that you come to, that journey, that adventure to get you out there and into this really special location is really part of that as well, because it's increasingly hard to replicate that anywhere else. And part of the reason for that is the dwindling access to truly dark skies and the things that are above our heads within those skies. And it's another strand of what we do is around dark skies advocacy. So we part of an international network that's interested in educating people about the importance of dark skies and the dwindling access to that as well. So in terms of the importance of that and the importance of getting people up there to see what is above their heads at all times when you just get the light out of the way. There's this terrible statistic that I keep trotting out, and I'm fairly sure it's true because I read it a couple of times in a couple of places, and I think it's startling, is that a child who's born today, by the time they're 18 years old, there'll be 50% less stars visible in the sky above their head if sky glow increases across the planet at the rate it is. And there's some really startling photographs of Earth from space from the 50s compared to now. And we're just throwing all of this light up into the air. And it's got an incredibly detrimental effect on human health, animal health and well-being, mental health, all of this sort of stuff. And it robs us of this natural wonder that's above our heads. So having this very special place where we can give people access to that wonder, we kind of hope, as well as giving them a good time and they learn about the universe and they engage with astronomy, which is charitably why we're here, we do hope we can encourage them to consider making changes, perhaps in how they light their home, how they engage with local councils on lighting in their area, all of that. Because, again, I go back to this all the time, but this is everyone's birthright. It's above our heads. It's beautiful. It's completely transformative, and it's evaporating at a rapid rate. So we're proud of our place on the hill where we can protect and educate around that.
Yeah, and it was the education actually I was struck to from listening to you, Leigh, because actually it sounds like you've got a fantastic team who do an important role in delivering this experience. But actually, I was thinking, is it around re-educating? But actually, it might be with younger generations more educating people now about the importance of our skies.
Yeah.
Could you give us a sense of the experience? It's not just, of course, of looking up through a very powerful telescope. What else is on offer within the experience of visiting the observatory?
Yeah. So if you were to come up, there's two buildings essentially. There's the original observatory building itself. It's been there since 2008, and then there's another building which is just literally over the path from it, which is the Gillian Dickinson Astro Imaging Academy. So that was set up a few years back with funding from Gillian Dickinson, and we have a classroom in the main building. We've got another classroom in the Gillian Dickinson building, and we move people around the site on the night. So if you were to come up, you get an introductory talk from one of the team. They're all themed, so it could be about anything. We do aurora nights, we do astrophotography nights, we do introductions to learnings about what's happening on other planets and the search for exoplanets and all of this kind of thing. We do themed nights, so you can come up more than once and you get a different experience. The visitors come, they get an introductory talk, and then they're split into 3 groups and they move around the building. So you'll get to go and look through the big telescopes. Depending on what's in the sky that night, everyone gets a chance to look. You get to experience our collection of space rocks as well, which everyone's very excited by. Essentially, it's a box full of shooting stars, which everyone's quite fascinated by, that they can hold one of these things in their hands, and that some of the objects that we give people to hold are actually older than the planet Earth itself as well. I mean, we're talking 4.6 billion years old. We've got bits of Mars. We've got bits of the moon. You can touch a bit of the moon. You can actually walk on Mars because one of our volunteers encased our sample within this sort of thing that you can stand on, which people always love that. And then we have another area that people go into and they have a talk with an astronomer about how they can engage more back home. So we show them these free kind of citizen science tools and apps they can access to continue their learning beyond the site. We've got a gravity well, which is a huge table with a stretchy fabric and big marbles that we tell people about gravity and how the solar system works. And we give people a really quite famous hot chocolate as well. They always kind of really enjoy that. But the crux of it is the stargaze. Now, one of my favorite types of events is the one where it's a little bit cloudy when people first arrive. And there's always this moment where people get a little bit, perhaps, they're sad that they're not going to see the stars, but they're excited about everything that's going on. And then there's this fantastic thing that happens where the clouds clear, all of the astronomers come running in, and everyone goes straight outside. And we've got other telescopes outside, we get people to look through. And at the heart of it is that experience, that chance to look through telescopes at the stars. And also, we kind of will run late as well. You know, we run till about 1 or 2 in the morning with the events. And if it's a clear sky, or if the aurora is happening, which we've had quite a lot of recently, the staff are just going to stay behind and stare at stuff in the sky for hours and hours until the sun comes up. And we're more than happy for people who are on site just to stay behind as well. So you have these fantastic experiences where you almost get a kind of, if you're willing to stay behind, a bit of a private night with our astronomers, you know, because there's nothing I like better than looking at the stars, looking at the skies, and talking to people about it as well.
It's more as well of a lifestyle, isn't it, for your team?
Oh, it is.
It's so impressive.
Yeah, there's actually several team members since I've started here have told me in all seriousness that they want to be buried beneath the observatory. So they're committed. You know, they've been here for an incredibly long time. Our volunteers have, our staff have, and I think it's a really good sign of how good the organisation is that people who come here tend to stay here for a long time, and when they leave, they go on to something kind of fantastic somewhere else.
On a personal level, the segues nicely in. On a personal level, you've got a very impressive CV with other visitor attractions, and you've been here just, 364 days, just under a year. Tell us a little bit about how you found this CEO role and your stewardship now of this organisation. What have you been getting your teeth into over the last year?
Yeah, well, it's been very interesting for me because I've been in the kind of cultural sector in the region since about 2009. So I was at Tyneside Cinema, then I was at Jarrow Hall, reopened that. I worked for the RNLI, so I looked after heritage across the north of England, well, across the north of the country, actually, for the RNLI. So I've been engaged in various disparate elements of the cultural sector over the last however many years. And I'd always been looking for something really interesting like this to get my teeth into and to have an opportunity to lead as well. It's always been something I've been interested in. I've been in senior roles for a long time now, but there's always that interesting step up that you do when it's kind of your thing and you're really given the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. And it's an incredible privilege. It's a daunting one as well. And as much as I'm here a year, I always wonder kind of at what point you're not the new person anymore. But I had a really interesting conversation with a very senior person in the Northeast cultural scene a couple of weeks ago who's been in their position for around 3 or 4 years now, and they still do the new bod bit. And I think there's a truism in that, which is that my time here so far has been around really learning, being a learner, kind of starting again in many respects. Because although I'm a CEO and I'm at the senior position in the organisation, I'm very much a newbie as a CEO, and I kind of find that exhilarating, that opportunity to learn and develop and to bring kind of a fresh perspective to an organisation as well. And I think over the past year, the key thing for me has been really getting to know the team, riding the line between being there for them and getting completely out of their hair as well. I'm very much a dabbler. I like to know what's going on. I'm very detail orientated, but the role of a CEO is very much to be somebody who's there for the detail as needed, but very much has their eye on the next 5 years, the next 10 years.
You're looking over the hill, aren't you?
Very much
you're
so.
in the horizon.
Yeah, and it's really trying to get comfortable with that and trust in my team, I think. And thankfully I've inherited a brilliant team. You know, every job tells you this, the team's great, everyone's fantastic. You know, they always do that. This one is. Yeah. This one's absolutely brilliant. And we've got a tight team of staff. We've got a really big team of volunteers as well. And all fantastic in their own way, all really unique individuals with a really unique perspective. And part of the work over the past year, alongside this kind of learning and this getting to know the team, has been around getting them ready for what we could be beyond where we are now. So I've inherited a really great strategy that runs to 2025 from the former CEO, Catherine Johns. We're working that through. But my eye is on 2026 to 2030. And I'm very collaborative. Mm-hmm. You know, I want to bring the team and the team in the broadest possible sense. So our volunteers, our trustees, and our staff along with us on this journey of what we can possibly be in 2030. What do we look like? And an element of that over the past year has been really deeply embedding the current strategy into the day-to-day work of the team. So it's not this kind of rarefied thing that sits there for funders or for trustees that we all get very happy about. Every 3 or 4 years it gets signed off and it goes on some strange shelf. Yeah, it gets somewhere. It sits in SharePoint and it's rarely opened. Yeah. I kind of don't see the point of having a strategy or priorities if we're treating it like that. So I've done work over the past year with the team to deeply embed our strategic priorities into their day-to-day thinking. We've got a kind of an acronym that one of the team came up with. It's SMED, which is the initialization of the 4 priorities that we have. And
which are what? Tell us those.
Strengthening our organisation, maintaining excellence in delivery, evolving the reach of our public events, and developing programs with high impact.
Well recovered. But but these now underpin everything that your team are focusing on. So you're all pulling in that same.
And it really is in the sense of just getting them to check their thinking. I mean, we all get involved in exciting things. You know, there's things that come across our desk or our email every single day that it could be fun to get involved in. But there's that moment where you need to just stop and think, is this the right thing to do now? Is it the right thing to do in the future? Is it the right thing to do at all? And embedding these priorities into people's day-to-day, into their appraisals, into their monthlies, their one-to-ones, all of this, into our regular staff meetings, just helps make that strategy and the strategic priorities a living thing that exists within the organisation. And the intention here is that when we deliver the next strategy, I've kind of got the team lined up in this way of thinking that this is not a thing that I'm doing with the board. Yeah. This is a thing we're doing together, and it's going to be part of our day-to-day lives and decision-making process.
Leigh, you mentioned joining the cultural sector in 2009. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this area.
Yeah, well, I'm a geneticist by trade, actually. So that's my my degree background is genetics. I did that in Newcastle University. I did a little, very short stint at the Centre for Life in the cytogenetics department. I didn't really want to do research. I didn't want to do diagnostics, all that sort of thing. So I did the typical uni thing, really. I fell into a bunch of different jobs. And one of them I fell into was Starbucks, actually. So I was a manager, increasingly senior manager at Starbucks. I was involved in the opening of the first store in the Metro Centre, one of the first stores in Ireland. And it was never kind of what I wanted to do, although I'll cast no aspersions on Starbucks. They're in terms of their focus on visitor experience in particular, they're incredibly hot. And that was something that really stuck with me. I was looking around for something else, and then I saw the job coming up for venue manager at Tyneside Cinema in Newcastle upon Tyne. So, fantastic institution, cultural, first-run cinema, gallery space, all this kind of thing. And I thought,
right in the centre of Newcastle.
Right in the centre. So I was like, well, that sounds fun, but I've got no chance of doing that. So I'll apply for it and see what happens. And I just kept getting through the interviews. It was one of those things where you kept getting called back and thinking, well, this is going somewhere. And the chief executive at the time, Mark Dobson, he's the person who really gave me the break. Actually, he saw something in me and in what I could bring to the organisation around, I think, visitor experience and a more commercial spin on things. And so that was it. I was really into the cultural sector, a really successful time there. We did a major redevelopment. It was still the most successful period in the history of the cinema. And I was just in then. And once you're in the cultural sector, you learn about everything else that's going on, the fantastic museums, galleries, performance, artists, everything that's going on in the region. And I've just kind of never wanted to leave, really. I've always been interested in doing different elements of culture. So I did, obviously, the cinema, sort of gallery aspects, the heritage aspects, commercial aspects. Then I moved into museums. And my last sort of journey was into the RNLI, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, looking after heritage for them in the north, and I never wanted to go anywhere else. That is an incredible organisation, doing really interesting cultural stuff as well. So I was there for around a year, and then I saw this job kind of advertised, and it really was the culmination of everything I'd sort of inadvertently been heading towards. A much-loved Northeast institution of a really great size as well for a first-time CEO to come on board. So I did the same thing, kept going for interviews. They kept asking me back. And then I got that great phone call where they said, well, do you want to come and do it? And I said yes. And ultimately, I'm hugely committed to culture and heritage. I'm hugely committed to the culture of the Northeast in particular as well. There's so much going on up here. I was just at the Culture Awards last week, and it's one of those places where you think you know everything that's going on, then you find out a million things that you didn't know about, and it just gets you more excited. Yeah, and it's a huge and somewhat unnoticed, I think, by the general public driver within the economy as well. The range of jobs that are available in the sector is huge. The amount of income revenue it generates is enormous, and I think there's a real case to be made ongoing for the importance of culture, for the importance of heritage within the region, and kind of being better at making that case to the broader public. Yeah, I think. Yeah, but I think it goes unseen similar to, I'm now in the Science Discovery Centre game alongside culture and heritage. And these things are all, there's a big, Venn diagram that's just one big circle, really. These things are all deeply interconnected. But again, a lot of the work goes unseen by the general public. So I think there's an important thing for me here to think about as an organisational and individual advocate for the importance of culture, heritage and science education in the region, and for perhaps helping in whatever way I can make the public more aware of the importance of this and the broadness of it as well. There's very little, even if we look around this room, that hasn't been touched on by science, culture or heritage. Everything's designed, everything's made, everything's thought of, and it goes unseen and sometimes underappreciated. So I feel a real responsibility to be an advocate for that. And again, I can't see myself doing anything else. It would have to be a really good offer, I think, from some terrible, ethically ambiguous bank or something to pull me away from this. But I don't think they could. I just kind of love it too much. There's nothing like it. It's difficult, small organizations, difficult times, funding, all of this sort of stuff. But it's those moments where you see a school kid look through a telescope or a refugee engage with a constellation that they recognize from back home. That person up on the hill who is gobsmacked by the universe above their heads. It's that's important, I think.
How do you envisage the role of a strategy for an organisation like this? What do you see the strategy doing, and how have you co-developed that with your team?
Well, we're really at the early doors part of it right now. So we've had a big session, first of all, with the staff. We have kind of quarterly get-togethers where, we book a room somewhere, we have tea, we have buns, we chat about what's going on, we chat about what's coming up, and we devoted a big chunk of time to just sitting the concept of 2030 in the room and asking these people who are far more experienced with Kielder Observatory than I am, well, what is it? What do you think it should be? What could it be? What are we missing? What could we do? What do we need to think about?
So very honest, warts and all.
Yeah, just everything. Like, what have we done wrong? What can we correct going forward? What have we missed? What have you always wanted to do that we've never done, and now you really think we should do it? So we've captured all of that. We had a big meeting with the trustees where we did very much the same thing, but at a very different level for trustees, as you can imagine, because they've got a different type of...
It's a different pitch, yeah.
Very different perspective on the organisation, but we did the same thing. What is this? What are we kind of even doing here? What's the point? And captured some brilliant thinking in there as well. The next stage for me is actually going to the volunteers as well. I want to bring them. We've got about 49, 50 volunteers at the moment. I have nowhere near met all of them yet because it's like herding cats, as it is with all volunteers. But these are great people who they donate their time. They come to us, they go miles and miles to get to us, and they stay with us for years, and they give us time, and they've got a different perspective on the organisation that I want to capture and feed into our strategy. And alongside that, it's doing a lot of blue sky thinking about, well, what do I think we should be? Is my vision for the organisation aligning with the trustees, with the staff? If it's not, how do I check my own thinking? Am I thinking about this wrong, or am I thinking about it right? And I actually need to think about how I bring the team along with me. And there's just considerations about what the hell the world's going to be like by 2030 as well.
Yeah, there's big questions.
Yeah, huge questions. I mean, the world's an unstable place right now. We've got the huge impacts of just global turmoil, socioeconomic issues. We've got the climate crisis, and that's a lot for society to deal with in 5 years, and that's going to impact us. It's washing up on our doorstep already in terms of the changing climate in our local area. But we've also got the huge opportunity of the next 5 years in terms of space, which is that this is the golden age of space that we're going into. Yeah. I had a brilliant session last week at Space Northeast down in Durham, where the speaker was Buzz Aldrin's son. And that was, I mean, he was a meter away from me, and I was like a school kid, I couldn't believe this person was in front. But he's an older guy now as well.
Yes, yeah.
Incredibly excited about the next 5 years and saying, my dad went to space, it was great, we did a lot, but this is the time.
This is the year.
We're going back to the moon. We're going to Mars. When we're going to Mars depends on what day you ask Elon Musk, I suppose. And that's a whole energy though. There's a huge energy and a
lot.
huge interest, and we've got major eclipse event coming up. There's all kinds of things happening. We've got a probe on the way to Europa. We may, within the next 5 years, have landed on the moon, be on our way to Mars, and have discovered alien life within our own solar system. And in terms of an organisation that's based around space and around space education and educating young people, underserved groups and all of that, this is a golden era we're entering into. So at one end, incredibly unstable time societally, globally. At the other end, incredibly exciting because this is the golden age of space travel. This is it.
And you're in this role, which is even more.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
And I love the way, and I'm going to touch upon that because I love the way you've got many of the people who we work with at Northumbria are family businesses, or they have micro firms. There's fewer than 9 colleagues. I love the way you've raised volunteers, nearly 50 of them, trustees who are kind of looking not to the day-to-day, but they're looking at the governance of the organisation. And of course, you're talking about your fantastic team who are looking at day-to-day. So you've got these 3 groups of people. And we see also that, we don't need to go far, even in the business press or the general press, that many visitor attractions, regardless of the buzz since COVID, which seems an awfully long time ago, have been affected through visitor numbers, changes in behaviour, the way in which we consume our visitor attractions. I wonder if you can just give us a sense of how COVID and the legacy of COVID has affected the observatory, Kielder Observatory.
Yeah, it's interesting really because I wasn't here for COVID. I was in a cultural organisation when COVID happened, and just reflecting on that for a moment, it was a really interesting time because part of the work I was involved in, this was when I was at Jarrow Hall, which is a local museum. We reopened it, renamed it, all of this sort of stuff. And part of the work we were doing was we were developing a plan for the next 15 years. And we had this funded by the National Lottery. We had consultants. We had everyone involved again, volunteers, staff, trustees, everybody. And we had this incredible document for the next 15 years. And we had this moment in September 2019 where we revealed it. We had our nice picture with the mayor.
Yeah,
everyone.
This was about 5 months before it all.
Yeah. But no concept of what was around the corner. And you do your kind of risk register. You look at threats, all of these things that could happen. All of that sort of stuff, that everyone does in every organisation. But no one had a global pandemic on there. And it was just such a blow for the organisation. And we got through it. We got external funding to support reopening and keeping staff and all of that, which Kielder Observatory did as well. Kielder Observatory got a bunch of money to support their reopening, installing sanitation stations, looking at new methods to bring visitors back in a safe fashion, all of that sort of stuff. They had all of that support. But for me coming in, I've got this position whereby it was the previous CEO who had to deal with this, and God bless Catherine who was here for this, because in a very similar way, she just came to the organisation and then COVID hit. Yeah, and in terms of the observatory itself, looking at the long view of it, it was born in 2008. It had a period, so for about 10 or 11 years or so, of development and growth, and really rapid growth as well. So with that, there's growing pains, It was never really intended to get as big as it did and as it is. And then COVID hits, and you have that incredible knock. And for a team whose love of what they do comes from standing in front of people and filling them with wonder, filling them with awe, connecting them to the universe and talking to them about this subject they're incredibly passionate about, that's kind of a huge psychological knock to have what you love kind of taken away from you like that. And alongside that, there's the existential worry that people have about their job, about the organisation. And thankfully, the observatory came through. There was support financially. There's the network of other organisations that were a part of that saw this through as well. The trustees were fantastic, and I've unpicked a lot of this with them as I've got to know them a bit more. But ultimately, we had a period of growth, a period of trauma through COVID, and then I'm in this role where I'm trying to get people to look ahead and to get into a new mindset, not of looking at the past and the trauma they experienced and the kind of the long shadow of COVID that still kind of looms, but to think about growth and opportunity and to feel optimistic again and excited, and also to take lessons from COVID as well, to build that into our thinking, to think about, well, if there was another whatever it is, all stop moment where at midnight we can't open the doors anymore and we're closed for the foreseeable future, how is the organization adaptable enough that we can pivot around that? How do we have digital in place? How do we have opportunities to engage with people off-site in place? So that's a lot of the work is around getting into an optimistic growth mindset, but also kind of taking what we learned from that traumatic period that every cultural organization and every individual, frankly, experienced, and seeing how we can take those lessons forward to make us kind of better and more resilient.
Yeah, and let's build upon that optimism, because actually there's a huge amount of momentum now within the organisation, and we've talked about accessibility, and we've talked about, in fact, goodness me, we've talked about the beauty inside of where you're based in the estate right on the Scottish borders, but we've also got new ways of working that you've been championing, and maybe also your team have been strategizing about trying to bring the observatory closer to suburban areas. Tell us a little bit about these new ways of working that are allowing you to increase visitor numbers and awareness for the organisation.
Yeah, well, I think that the key thing for us is that the core of the Kielder moment is going back to where we started here, around place, around that experience. But in order to have that experience, and it's a very successful one, we're booked months in advance, we do really well. There's a lot goes into that. You need to be able to drive. I know somebody with a car who can get you out there. There's no public transport to it. Even if you get off at a train station or a bus station, it's a hell of a walk. You need to then be able to have the night off. You probably need to have the morning off. You probably need to stay somewhere locally as well. So all of these things are barriers to engagement. And as a charity, one of the crux of what we're here for is to engage people with astronomy and encourage people to become astronomers or to go into something that they love, with astronomy being the stepping stone, and that they could go into another science or an art or whatever it may be. So it's how do we do that beyond the site itself? And we've got a range of ways in which we do that, both with partnerships and with technologies. So we operate at a range of places across the Northeast. We've done engagements at Anna Garden, Phoenix, the Common Room, all of these places where our astronomers can go and deliver our version of Kielder Observatory that has at its heart that Kielder moment, but a different variety of it, a different version of it. And we're quite picky about where we work as well, because what we don't want to do, we know we've got something very special here, incredibly special and increasingly well regarded. And we don't want to dilute that by just going everywhere. We're picky about making sure that we can deliver an experience that we think is of the quality we believe the people who engage with us deserve. And we believe everyone, no matter how they're engaging with us, deserves that really high quality experience. So we've got these partnerships. We have pop-ups as well. We had a thing with Urban Green in Newcastle who looked after the parks, where if for whatever reason we could not get up to the observatory, or we had some people free and the sky was looking good in central Newcastle, we just send somebody out to a field with a telescope and just let people turn up.
And notify them that you're here.
Yeah, just go out on social media, tell them we're there, come and chat to Ellie, come and chat to Dan. Just turn up and come and look through the telescope, and that's really great. Alongside that, we've got work that we do in schools. So we've got a hugely successful curriculum enrichment program that we do. It's currently funded by the Reese Foundation.
Oh, yes.
Who are a really great partner on this, and we work really well with them. But we're engaging around 10,000 school children this year in schools across the Northeast, and often in disadvantaged areas as well. And alongside that, we, outside of the people who are perhaps visitors who can't make it to the site, there are underserved groups who we work with and want to continue to work with. So we did a brilliant engagement with the West End Refugee Service in Newcastle, funded by the Museums Association through a project called Mindsets and Missions. We got, I think, 14 to 15 refugees variously to become astrophotographers. So they went from probably never having looked through a telescope to being on site up at the observatory, stacking space images and learning how to be astrophotographers. And there was a fantastic moment of connection with them as well. I remember being in the centre of Newcastle, and there was a mother and a child looking through the telescope, and they'd kind of recognised, either the mother or the child recognised that it was it was the exact same constellation that they saw in their home country, and it was this connection, back to their home, back to their heritage.
It's a place, isn't it?
It's one of those moments, again, you get caught up in spreadsheets and strategies and all of this, but that's kind of why we're here, that moment of connection and engagement. And again, working beyond the site with other communities, we've worked with prisoners. We had a project with HMP Northumberland and Novus, who provide education to prisoners nationally. And it was a creative project with a brilliant artist called Bridget Hamilton, where we worked with people who have the night sky actually completely taken away from them, which is a stunning thing to think about. Re-engage them with that heritage and got them to become writers and creatives and engage in a different way than you could in an urban centre or up at our place on the hill. So going forward, it is very much about things that were successful, like the refugee project, the prisoners project, carrying those forward, continuing the schoolwork, but looking for interesting ways to engage beyond the site, including with new technologies as well. That's something we're really just getting into now.
And I wonder if I get a sense regionally, the widening participation agenda is very important. The role with schools and prisons is absolutely fantastic, and with refugees. So you're going to a really broad, holistic area of society on a regional level. What about on a more national level? Is it the same strategies? Because they're clearly working at a local level. How do you entice people in from outside of the region?
We've actually had an interesting change. For the last couple of years, we've done a reasonably big and statistically significant visitor survey.
Right.
And we've kind of flipped over in the past couple of years our core audience. So it used to be that over half the audience was coming locally, so within the northeast, that quadrant, and now over 50% of the audience are coming from outside.
Fantastic.
To come to the observatory, which is brilliant. I mean, not least because it means that our reputation's growing nationally, internationally. It's also bringing people into the local area to spend in the local economy. And one of the other interesting nuggets that we dug out is that the vast majority of people who are coming from outside the area are coming specifically to visit Kielder Observatory and then planning the rest of their trip.
So you are the hook.
So we are the hook.
You are the... And so that's important work in thinking that you must be taking into your 2030 strategy.
Yeah.
Thinking about how to understand better those visitors and how to understand also more how you can expand that. You talked about internationally. I mean, you definitely, it's so impressive nationally. You can see how you're bleeding into different regions. But I suppose why stop there? The next legacy is to think about how can you take it into Europe and internationally. How do your team respond? How do your team respond to now knowing that the people who come to work with, they're actually got different accents and they're not Geordies, but they're it's not the local folk. It's actually different people from broader regions. So do they meet that in a very positive way? Is this exciting for them?
Oh, they love it. Yeah, I mean, the core of it is the excitement of people coming from anywhere and for them to be able to talk about what they do. So I think if people are coming from even further afield, it's probably as exciting, if not more exciting, for them to know that we've got that kind of draw. And I think the team are excited about doing more beyond where we are as well. We've got a project happening next year where we are doing Aurora talks in another country. So we're partnering with another organisation that runs these things. They're bringing our team along. So we're going to see how that goes. We're going to get data from it, see if it's something we want to continue doing, see how we can expand on it, or see how we can do something completely different. I think that's the key thing for us, is that we treat everything as data, essentially. At the core of the team is a love of science and a scientific approach to things, which is that there's no real such thing as a failed experiment. There's just data.
Yeah.
So that permission to fail, I think, is important as we go forward strategically as well. Now, if we're failing 9 times out of 10, we've got an organizational problem. But if we're failing 1 or 2 times out of 10 and we learn a really valuable insight from it, well,
you've got new insights, haven't you?
That's good stuff, yeah. And so the question is then, how can we take that forward? But yeah, piloting things internationally is certainly something that we're looking to do. But again, the core of this is being really picky. And I'm incredibly sniffy about this because I'm protective of...
Is this your strategic partnerships as well? Is it who you partner with?
Yeah. So the type of people we partnership, where we work, and again, the core of it being that we, at all costs, we protect that Kielder moment and how we deliver that off-site. Because if we're just a bunch of astronomers talking about space, well, a lot of people can do that. We're specifically Kielder Observatory somewhere else. So what does that look like, and how do we give people that same feeling in Finland as they do when they come up the hill to us in Blackfell, you know?
Can you give us a sense of some of the criteria? I mean, this is a very personal thing, but you talk about partnerships and you talk about collaboration being actually very beneficial, commercially beneficial. But what's the kind of filter for you that makes you ask those important questions who you work with? What are you looking for from a potential strategic partnership?
Yeah, I mean, increasingly, it's real engagement ethically with what they're doing. So as we go forward as an organization, we're embedding ethical practice, environmental considerations much more deeply into our decision making. And there's only so much we can do kind of with our own resources, you know. We can always be better buyers. We can do more around sustainability. We're already off grid, so there's a limited amount more we can kind of really do there. We can get a more powerful wind turbine, which we're looking at the minute. So for us, working with partners, it is looking at, well, what are they bringing to the table? Yeah. You know, and having those sometimes difficult conversations around their ethical responsibility, their environmental remit. Yeah. What are they doing? And one of the interesting things is you may have a difficult conversation that means you don't want to work with a partner because they're not quite there yet. But also what you can do, and I think if enough of us as organizations across the region and across the country are doing this, is compel change by everyone's getting asked these questions. Yeah. You can't get away with working with somebody unless you've got an ethical policy, unless you've got an environmental sustainability policy, and you stand by it and you assess it and all of that. So I think working with good organizations, and I mean in the most holistic sense of good for the world, is important to us. And beyond that, people like working with people. So we kind of just want to get on. And also fulfill needs. I think the best partnerships are where we each fulfill a mutual...
Yes, and you both benefit.
We both benefit, yeah. And it's sort of easy when that happens. It just works.
Thank you to today's guest, Leigh Venus, Chief Exec of Kielder Observatory. Don't forget to check out previous episodes covering a range of topics from running and owning a small business, including embracing tech and tips to be a marketing master. To find out how Northumbria University can help your business, head online to northumbria.ac.uk/help to grow, where you can find out more about the Help to Grow management programme and the broader support on offer to small businesses. And we'll see you next time on Why Small Business Matters.